If this goes on, don't panic. Bringing hope to the world through speculative fiction.
Hello and welcome to If This Goes On, Don't Panic. Today we have coder and award-nominated writer Matthew Kressel. And probably the person I've interviewed the most in my podcasting career. I'll add that on there too. Kat, how's everything going?
It's going pretty well. It might be spring here, but I'm not betting my life on it. We'll see.
It's funny that you mentioned that because it's really warm today, but we are scheduled for more snow later in the week. So
Yeah.
It's teasing us, but it is nice, to have some warm weather finally. And, it just always improves my mood.
Oh, yeah.
The first few warm days, you're just like, okay, like everything isn't horrible,
Just some stuff.
just almost everything.
It's almost everything. Oh, God.
I was mentioning to you before the podcast that I just came back from Concoction not too long ago.
Uh-huh.
And that was quite fun. Made some new friends up there, renewed some acquaintances, played lots of board games, was on some
Nice.
awesome panels.
Nice.
Yeah, I ran a panel called Nobody Likes a Fascist, so that was good.
That sounds like you would not have many people disagreeing with you. One would hope.
You would think. It was... No, it was pretty well attended, actually. And we talked about like how to basically not be a fascist in your writing. Things to avoid and how to talk about things and stuff like that. And I think it was a pretty good panel, actually. I have been considering the idea of maybe doing a similar panel for the podcast, though.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll see what comes of that. I'm super ultra busy right now, so it ain't happening right now, but later.
If we did that, I bet we could get Harry Turtledove back because he would definitely be willing to come on and talk about how much he dislikes fascists.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was thinking we could maybe get like Malcolm Older on.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever spoken with P. Jelly Clark?
I don't think I have.
Oh my God. Okay, so it must have been Diane that interviewed him with me like years and years and years ago. Way back at the beginning of this podcast, like when his first book came out. And wow, is that guy freaking unbelievably smart and so articulate. It's unbelievable.
Nice.
Yeah, I would love to get him onto that kind of a panel too. And I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many good choices. It's almost hard to narrow it down, to be honest.
Yes. Well, you could do a whole series.
Kat, if I had the time, I totally would.
Here, I'm willing to.
I totally would.
In your copious free time.
In my copious free time. So what's anything that you need to update us on or, just usual?
I'm excited. I just did a round of publicity for something that actually will be closed by the time this goes out. But the Wayward Wormhole is going to exotic Sandusky, Ohio in September for a workshop with Charlie Finley and Don Moss. And I think that will be really cool.
Oh.
And then in November, my business associate and I are going to go scope out Japan as a possibility for doing a wormhole there.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I want to go so bad. Oh, I'm not even going to participate in any of this stuff. I just want to go to Japan and hang out with you all.
There you go. It should be fun.
Ugh, that sounds awesome. Sounds super awesome.
It is. But what's new with you? Anything else other than coming back from the convention?
Not much. I survived the latest round of cuts at work, so that's good.
Yay!
I feel like it's like, where they just vote people off the island and then there was one person left.
Yeah.
We're getting there. We're not down to 1, but we're close. We're getting real close.
You're getting, like, really careful with your habits, like, nobody burns popcorn in the microwave, everybody's, like, very careful and gracious to everybody else, and
Oh God. Well, I work from home, thankfully, so I don't have to worry about that.
okay.
But I have, my anti-authoritarian streak kind of runs in the opposite direction of that. Like, the more annoyed I get, the more, like,
Yeah.
outspokenly pissed off I am.
Yeah.
Which, probably not good for career aspects, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, shall we interview Matt Kressel?
I think we should interview Matt Kressel. I'm excited.
All right. Well,
All right.
let's begin that.
All right. Well, we will be right back with our guest, Matt Kressel. Today we have Matt Kressel. He is a multiple Nebula and World Fantasy Award nominated author and coder. His many works of short fiction have appeared in Analog, Asimov's, FNSF, Lightspeed, Clark's World, Tor.com/Reactor, Beneath Ceaseless Skies, and many other publications and anthologies, including multiple years' bests. His most recent books are The Rainseekers, published by Tor.com in February of 2026, Spacetrucker Jess, published by Fairwood Press in July 2025, and his short story collection Histories with Us, published by Census 5 Press in February 2025. Alongside Ellen Datlow, he runs the Fantastic Fiction at KGB reading series in Manhattan. He co-hosts the Nerd Count podcast with Mercurio de Rivera, and he is the creator of Moksha, the submission system used by many of the largest publishers today. And you can find out more about him at www.matthewkressel.net, and that's spelled MATTHEWKRESSEL. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Kat. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, super excited to have you here. You are like, I always say this to you every time you come onto something I'm hosting or some case where I'm interviewing you, but you're like the science fiction pillar. You've done something for everyone and been in every magazine, and you get around with all your different projects.
I don't know. I mean, maybe with Moksha, because a lot of publications use it for their magazine submissions, for sure. But I certainly have not been in every magazine.
That's totally fair. Totally fair. No, but I'm just meaning that you've been in a lot of the big ones. That's all I mean.
Yeah. I've had stories in some of the big magazines, for sure. It's exciting. The most recent was one of my bucket lists, was to get in, like, so when I first started, the so-called big three were Asimov, Analog, and FNSF, and I had been in the first two, Asimov's and Analog. And I co-wrote a story with Mercurio de Rivera, and it just came out when did it come out? A few weeks ago in the magazine of fantasy and science fiction. So yeah. I say a few weeks ago, and I'm looking at my list. It was in November. So that just tells you like where my head is in terms of time.
Yeah, you're not the only one. I think everybody feels that way these days. Well, that happens to be my favorite of those three. So I have a subscription to it, and I have your story, and I have not read it yet. I was too busy reading other things by you, but I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the editor's name. What's her name? We've had her on here before.
Cherie Renee Thomas.
Cherie, yeah. Cherie does such a great job as an editor. I just love her work. So
yeah. We were stoked to get that story published.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. That's such a great venue. Or at least it was. I know there's there's stuff happening with them. I'm not completely in the know about all of it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, they have a new owner now. It's one owner for the big three now.
Mm-hmm.
And they were a little slow getting the first issues out because they're picking up where the others left off, and there's a learning curve, and they had to get their like distribution in order and printers and all that stuff. But I think they got all the kinks ironed out, because I heard that they're coming out with another issue pretty quickly, so that's good.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
I had heard that there was some contract stuff going on too. I don't know what happened with that.
There was, yeah.
I'm assuming they got that ironed out.
I don't know how much I could say. Yeah, we had some. We went back and forth a few times with the contract, but apparently they changed it to make it more favorable to SIFWA and standard boilerplate contracts that are author friendly.
That's good. That's good. I see Maurice Brodus was in that as well, so I'm thinking,
yeah,
they got their stuff in order. Maurice is no one's fool, so
no one's fool.
No one's fool. So I'm glad to hear that, because I really love that magazine, and I was a little bit worried there for a while, like it might go south real fast. So
yeah.
But I really wanted to start talking to you about your history. Like I said earlier, you've really been involved with a lot in science fiction. A lot of it is kind of behind the scenes stuff, but you've really been around for a while too. I believe you even edited a magazine like back in the day. Am I right about that? I think so.
Yeah. Sybil's Garage.
That's right.
It's 2003 to 2010. So it was annual. So like I'm kind of resistant to calling it a magazine. Towards the later end of it, I started calling it an anthology. But it started off like the issue 1 was. I was working in a print shop in Hoboken. Issue 1 was like I stapled it together myself. I had like resume paper for the cover, and the rest was just something I laid out myself using like Frame Maker or something. That was before InDesign. And then the second issue we printed. It was in, it was more of like a not quite digest, but it was like that kind of style. Kat, you were in a couple of those early issues.
I was, because I went to Clarion West with Chris Dykman, who I think had helped you with some of the stuff.
Yeah. So it was really fun. It was really cool. Like we put a lot of art and just a lot of really just love into it. It was a labor of love. Made no money. We were, back then, we definitely paid the authors, but it was something called a token payment. I don't really see that too much now, but we didn't pay very much. But we paid, and it was like for a while it was getting a lot of attention. It was like there were a lot of so-called zines around at the time, like Electric Philosophy. I think Say was one of them. Lady Churchill's Rosebud Wristlet, which is still around. So I was kind of emulating them. And yeah, it was a lot of fun, but I think we did it for 7 years. I had a lot of help. And then when you're editing, and I think at least Kat, I know you definitely edit. I'm not sure, Alan, do you edit as well? But
not yet.
Like for me, I found that I was not writing when I was editing. And I just said to myself, I have a day job, I have significant other in my life, and, family and whatnot. And it's like, okay, I have to choose, do I want to be an editor or do I want to be a writer? And which one do I love more? And I was like, I love editing, but I think I love writing just a smidge more. So I had to give it up. But I still have ideas for like anthologies and things like that.
That's awesome. And Kat, I did not know that you were ever in any of those. So that's kind of cool. You two must.
Well, Sybil was a really nice magazine, and one of the things that I loved about it was like each issue was better in terms of the production quality. I mean, and it started with very cool production qualities, but then it just got kind of jazzier and jazzier with each issue. So I was sorry to see it go.
I was sorry too. A lot of the improvement, I think, was just me learning like how to lay out stuff. And yeah, like we started off, I think the cover was like black and white, and then on kind of like parchment. And then I think it was by issue 4, we started doing color covers, perfect bound. Really, really nice looking magazine.
Yeah.
There's you could still get the digital copies if you go to senses5.com, SENSESFIVE.com. And, I think they're like $5 or something. But yeah, there's some good stuff in there. And then a lot of people had some of their early first stories in the magazine.
That's so cool. Kat, like, where were you at in your career at that point in time?
I think like the first story was something that I'd written just after I got out of Clarion West. So that would have been 2005. And then I think I had something a couple of years later. So yeah, it was pretty early for me. It was like one of the first few publications, that first one.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool. So I wanted to go even before that, Matt. I'm wondering, like, how did you get into all of this in the first place?
Like writing, you mean?
Writing and science fiction and fantasy, and what point did you decide, like, I'm gonna make this magazine? And
Yeah.
unless you had something before that.
Well, I think that kind of the moment in time where I just said, all right, I'm going to do this seriously was I took a class at the New School at the advice of a friend. So the New School is a college in Manhattan, and there was a writing class there, and it was taught by Alice K. Turner, who was the fiction editor for Playboy. And Playboy back in the day was like the place for fiction. They paid some crazy rate. I forget what it was, but they paid a lot of money. And they published a lot of great people. And Alice Turner was the editor of that. And she was actually subbing for Terry Bisson. So Terry used to teach the class and he moved out to California. So he's like, Alice, you want to take over? So Alice took over. Anyway, when I took the class, Alice was teaching and really just kind of fell in love with it. It was basically just a critique class. Like we would submit work and have it critiqued. And Alice introduced me through, I think it was Terry, introduced me to the members of what are now known as Altered Fluid, which is the writing group I'm in. So myself and Devin Poor, who I know, I think Kat knows. I'm not sure if you know him, Alan. Alice was basically like, I think these two people are, you should take them seriously. Have a look at them, and they might be a fit. And so we joined Altered Fluid, which was called something else then, and then that kind of set me on the path and never really stopped. And, like you were saying earlier, when you're introducing and stuff, you've had your hands in a lot of things in the genre. And I don't think it was a conscious choice necessarily. I mean, like each thing was certainly like a conscious thing, but it was more of, things just sort of, I saw things that were happening and said, I want to do that. Right. So I saw like zines and I'm like, that looks really cool. I want to do a zine. And, as far as writing, that was just me just submitting stories, to the writing group and getting critiqued and trying to work at it and trying to get better. And, like the KGB stuff, the fantastic fiction, that was me. So when I was doing Sybil's Garage, I used to pick Gavin Grant's brain all the time. So Gavin Grant and Kelly Link, they run Small Beer Press, and they were publishing Lady Churchill's Rosebud Wristlet. And I was like emailing Gavin all the time or at conventions, talking to Gavin all the time. Like, how do I do this? How do you do that? How do you print a book? And he was awesome. He's like, here's what you do. Here's what we do. You might try this. You might try that. Here's the software we use. So Gavin was co-hosting Fantastic Fiction with Ellen Datlow. And I think they asked me to like sub because they had moved to Northampton and it was like 3-hour drive for them. They used to live in Brooklyn. They moved out of state and they're just like, this is too much. Can you sub? So I subbed a few times and then like I get an email, I think from Ellen and Gavin, and they were like, do you want to take over for Gavin? And my first instinct was like, I don't want responsibilities, I want to sit in the back and drink a beer and listen to great stories and hang out with my friends. Like, I don't want to have to like do stuff. And so I called up David Mercurio, and he's an attorney and he was actually in court. And he's like, I can't talk now, but whatever you do, don't answer now. And he called me up later and he's like, you should absolutely do it. And I mentioned it to my writing group, I think, and they were like, oh my God, you should absolutely do it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great opportunity. And I'm so glad I did. Like it was just, I don't know what I was thinking. Like I think earlier incarnation of me just had this aversion to all forms of responsibility. I think I partly cured myself of that, but not completely. It's been great. And that was 2008. So yeah, what is that? Oh my God, 18 years. So that's how I got involved in KGB. And that's just been amazing.
Let me just tell you something real quick. You don't have to comment on this, but
yeah.
I interviewed Ellen and She's definitely been one of the most intimidating people I've interviewed. Let me start with that.
Yeah.
She's also the only person who has just answered no to one of my questions. I asked her a question. I can't remember what it was. And she's like, no. Next question. I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. Ellen is amazing. I mean, I love Ellen. She's one of my favorite people. She's a total straight shooter. Like she doesn't abide fools, and like, if she doesn't like something, she'll tell you just flat out, like, I don't like it, or I don't want to talk about it, or that's not how you do it, and I've seen her at conventions where it's like somebody, you're supposed to end the panel, let's say at like 12:55, and it's 12:57. She'll open the door, say, "You're over, you're done. It's it's 12:57. You get out." And that's just Ellen. She's done over 100 anthologies, I think, like 120 something at this point, and edited countless stories for sci fiction, which was big. And she does, she edits tor.com/reactor now, and she does the year's best. And she's constantly reading. I haven't been to her place in a little while, but whenever I go over there, there's just stacks of books. Like people just send her books for review, like for year's best, right?
Yeah.
And so she just reads and reads and reads all day, and she doesn't watch TV during the week. She has a strict rule. So like at night, when you or I are like binging Netflix, like she's working, and I think that's part of it. And I think that, the reason why she's so successful, obviously she's extremely smart person, but I think it's also that work ethic. And, having done KGB, the reading series for a while with her, and like you see people come through, you see writers come through, and some of them, they're like really great writers. And then like they sort of disappear. And it's like, obviously some people just like, they don't want to write anymore. They're done. But I think some of it's just like the people that persist, the people that really go far, I think from my point of view, are the people that really have that like work ethic, that really just work hard at it.
Kat, what's your perspective on that? Because you've been around for quite some time yourself.
I think that's absolutely right. And I think that talent will take people a long way, and certainly likability will, but work ethic is the thing that gets anthology invitations and gets people know that they can count on you. I think is a big thing.
Yeah, kindness too. I mean, because you were just talking about personality, and just, you always remember the people that are nice to you, and you always remember the people that aren't,
Yeah.
But overall, in general, most people are really just, it's a 99.9% extremely welcoming community in my experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would totally agree with you. In fact, back in 2018 at the Nebulas, at one point I walked up to Kat and I said, wow, like this is the first con that I've ever been to. And like, I think I finally found my people. And
yeah.
Well, how old was I at that point? Let's see. What year is it? Okay, I got to do some quick math here. Okay, so I was like 39. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it took me till 39, but yeah, I mean, I could talk to anyone about any of my interests really, and there was somebody there who would willing to pick up the conversation and listen to what everyone had to say, and
you could nerd out without fear of people like looking at you cross-eyed or mocking you or whatever. They just, you could just totally talk about the things that fascinate you, and there's no shame in it. And that's a wonderful feeling.
Absolutely. You are much more articulate than I am around that. Yes, that's exactly right. And it was just a really, really great experience. And then, to that point for me, I had been doing the Alan Jeremy versus Science Fiction podcast. And that's kind of when I like decided in my mind, like, okay, this was a good decision to start doing this podcast thing. And I'm just going to keep going no matter what happens. And even though that podcast fell apart, that was definitely for me a big part of why I just kept going, even though that fell apart,
Yeah.
So anyway, this isn't about me. This is about you. And we should talk about your two newest books, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You've got the Rainseekers, which just came out, and you've got Spacetrucker Jess, which really, I mean, like in book time, pretty much just came out too.
Yeah.
So I've got two real quick questions for you, and they're both kind of like nerd nerd geeky. Like I read everything Matt Kressel writes questions.
Nerd out.
First of all, is Rainseekers and Spacetrucker Jess, are they in the same universe?
Yes, they are. They are.
I knew it. I knew it.
Yeah, they're peripherally. They're related subtly. So, okay. How do I say this? I'm trying not to spoil things of either book. So the Rainseekers takes place a few hundred years in our future. I don't have strict timelines because I feel like that just puts me in a box that I don't want to be in. So I don't adhere strictly to timelines when I write, but let's just say the Rainseekers is a few hundred years in our future. We've partly terraformed Mars. Spacetrucker Jess is perhaps 1,000 years after that, way, way, way down. However, I initially had a much more explicit connecting thread between the two books, and I'm actually working on a follow-up to the Rainseekers that I'm hoping to make the connection much more explicit than it is now, in a way that doesn't diminish the books being standalone, if that makes sense.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly don't think I would have known if I had not been reading them both at the same time.
Yeah. That's fair. I mean, yeah, there are other short stories that are in the same universe too, actually.
Yes. So in Spacetrucker Jess, there's this drug, and I'm forgetting the name of it right now, but
The sweet gismus,
sweet gismus, and people smoke it, and then they see these, I don't know, these other beings, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you have another story that's a lot older where there's a similar situation, or I'm assuming it takes place in the same universe, where it's very similar, right? The guy smokes the stuff and he speaks to this godlike entity, right? And doesn't planet disappear in that one too? Trying to remember.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I think you're talking about Now We Paint Worlds, which
Yes.
is in Reactor. And so that actually describes events that are talked about in Spacetrucker Jess, because Spacetrucker Jess is a first-person present tense. So, I can't jump and tell you something that's happened like on another planet across the galaxy, without going into a crazy info dump. So, like, you do, she's basically reading like news reports and summarizing it to somebody else. Like, hey, by the way, 3 planets are missing, and there are alien gods now. And yeah, Now We Paint Worlds describes that from the point of view of first contact with these alien beings known as Newmans. But yeah, and then there's a couple other more explicit stories. So in Spacetrucker Jess, there's this planet called Gilder Nefan. It means golden flags, land of the golden flags. And they smoke that drug to commune with the Newmans, who they see as divine messengers of God. And they shun technology. Like they don't believe in modern tech. So they live in buildings without elevators, like tall skyscrapers that are built by hand. There's no elevators. Everything is steps, and everything is like handmade. And there are exceptions, but that's basically what they do. And a couple of those stories revolve around characters who are living on this world and communicating with these Newmans and these creatures, these alien creatures are inscrutable they're inscrutable to humanity. So their motivations are not necessarily things we can comprehend or understand. And they don't always kind of jibe with our own desires. So even though sometimes they might give humanity a boon, sometimes they may give you a bane, you know what I mean? So yeah, so they're all sort of connected. And then obviously there's a a couple scenes there, a part of Spacetrucker Jess, where they go to Gildernafon, and Jess obviously has a moment there where she is awakened, let's just say, without spoiling it.
Was the creation of this sort of series always intentional?
I think when I first started writing, I definitely wrote stories in sort of a loosely connected universe. And as I got further along, so the first story I wrote in this universe was called Saving Diego. And something about it just really stuck with me, and I wanted to do more in it. And then I kept kind of coming back to the same world, and then eventually I sort of branched out into other things. So yeah, I mean, in my head, almost all of my early science fiction stories were connected in one way or another, but it wasn't overt or necessarily. But I think these are more overt for sure.
One of the things you talked about recently on your website was writing and authenticity. And that is, I think, particularly relevant today where we get AI slop on a sort of daily basis. Will you talk a little bit about writing and the need for authenticity?
Yeah, I think that post was precipitated by, so there was this podcast, which it was a radio show called Bookworm, and the host name I want to say is Michael Greenblatt. I could be bangling that, but I was just listening to some early episodes, they were like 26 years old. Like they were all radio shows, but they just re-released them as podcasts. So like one of them was like David Foster Wallace, and he was talking about how there was this sort of weird, the way I'm not, this is not what he said, this is my interpretation, but this sort of weird sort of Ouroboros self-awareness thing going on where the writer is aware of the reader who's aware of the writer, and there's this constant like, look at me and look at what I'm doing, and this whole like we're just very self-conscious of each other. And I think like a lot of his fiction was definitely focused on like extreme self-consciousness, and I think that he was just sort of maybe a little prescient about the world that we're in now, where it's like everybody on social media is like, look at me. There's this extreme self-awareness of like, I'm presenting to the world an image that I want the world to see. And I know that I'm presenting an image, and you know that I'm presenting an image, and how that like changes the nature of communication when we're all just like projecting this thing out to the world. And like you said, Kat, it's like, especially now with AI, where it's just like, it's not even your own creation. It's a machine, a stochastic engine is spitting out this simulacrum of a human creation. And it just seems to me very, very inauthentic and very against where I'm at right now in my writing, where I want to be extremely true to my own feelings and my own thoughts. And, if that means that the story doesn't follow like a traditional plot arc or narrative structure, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because I feel like it's more important to tell the truth. However that comes across. I mean, it doesn't always work story-wise because, if you're too literal to the way the world works, sometimes readers are like, well, that's not satisfying. It's like, well, the world sometimes isn't satisfying. So like you want to satisfy the reader. So there is like limitations to it. Like you still have to sort of follow a kind of genre expectation or a narrative expectation. But at the same time, right now I'm really striving to be like, to not project and just be like, here's something that I feel really strongly that I want to put on the page. And, just be like vulnerable and like naked, here it is. Here's the truth. It's unvarnished. It's my truth. It may not be your truth, but this is my expression. So I don't know if that made any sense at all.
No, it did.
Yeah.
It did.
And I mean, I think you've really, in a way, described a lot of the Rainseekers, because it doesn't follow like a traditional plot necessarily. It's really a lot of stories about the people's lives, right?
Yeah.
Tied together by the interviewer, right? And I really felt your characters in that were very authentic. And honestly, like, I really think it's probably your best character work, in my opinion.
Thank you.
You probably spent at most 10 or 11 pages with each character. I mean, some definitely less than that, but after reading their little stories, you really had the feeling of a complete embodied person, an understanding of like the person's struggles and what they've gone through. And, there are definitely multiple times where I'm like, I know somebody like that, or I know somebody who's lived part of this, you know what I mean? And they were all very different, like sometimes you read a writer who's really trying to have these, very deep characterizations, but you can still kind of see the writer's hand behind the characters. But I really felt like they all had their own voices.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I really worked hard at that. I mean, they're all filtered through Sekunja's voice. So Sekunja's the narrator of the book. And so I think that, some of it is colored by her, like, because, the structure of the story is that she's sort of reiterating, she's telling you the stories that were told to her. So yeah, I really worked at it to try to get each voice to be unique. And I'm also dealing with a lot of different cultures, some of them very different from my own. So that was something where I had to work really hard at, and to do it in a way that, like Kat said, like was authentic and respectful, and not treating, a culture as a stereotype or as a cliche, or to, God forbid, anything that's like inadvertently racist or something like that. So it was really, really hard to I had to do a lot of research for all of that. But I think that in my experience, as long as you treat each character like a real human, like a real person with real feelings, like, at the end of the day, we're all the same. And then that was sort of like my guiding light, so to speak, for each of them, is like that they're all just human beings, just, trying to find their way in the world. And how would they do that if they started with these circumstances and then just went with that?
You mentioned that when writing a character from a different culture, you can't make their culture a cliche, or you can't make them a cliche of their culture, right? What did you do to get to the point where you felt okay with the characters you had? I know you said you did some research. Could you like elaborate on that more? Or
I'm like a constant reader, and I'm very curious about different cultures and different things. And some of that was taken from reality. So the Hasidic man that leaves his community and goes to Mars because he's like, I'm not a believer anymore. And then he was secretly going to a philosophy group. That was a real thing, actually. I read about that. There was like this Hasidic man, young, very curious, but he would have been shamed by his community for doing something quote unquote secular like that. But he was like, he spoke about how he found that a lot of the philosophy that he discussed in this group was very similar to the stuff that he was learning in his Talmudic classes, but he didn't realize how much that ancient thinkers had also thought about the same questions, and that there was some overlap. And then he actually thought that some of the other answers may have been better, or not just better necessarily, but just added insight into things. And he's like, well, why aren't we discussing this? Or why aren't we allowed to look into this? And he started to doubt, but he ended up staying with his family. And then there was another one. Oh God, what's the author's name? I think it was Shulam Dean. I'm blanking on the name of the book, but it was like he broke away from his community, and there's actually a thing called, what is it called? Footsteps, I think, where it like helps people from ultra orthodox communities, reorientate to a secular life or, less religious life. And then so those are like real things. Without getting too specifics, the story about the guy who was an orphan and grew up in a foster care. I knew someone who did that in a lot of similar ways. And, the other characters that I didn't have direct experience with, it was just a lot of reading, a lot of research, just finding books on subjects. I mean, there's so much on the internet you can read about things, and just treating them at the end of the day just like real people, and real feelings, and not cliches, and not sock puppets so that I can profess one opinion or another to you. Just let them have their own voice. And it's something I think that I've gotten pretty good at, and I think most writers are probably really good at this, is just putting yourself in the head of another character, just totally imagining yourself having their life experience. And when you do that, if you do it well enough, I think it's I don't want to say easy, but you can figure out what they would do and what they would think and how they would act. So I just sort of let that guide me also. And then I roll a D20, and then
I was waiting for something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm actually DMing a game for the second time in my life right now.
Yeah? How's that going?
It's going well. So can I squirrel to a brief
Yes,
D&D?
absolutely.
Okay.
Totally.
All right. So I was so nerdy as a kid that I wasn't even allowed to play D&D with the D&D kids. Like, they were like, "You don't know the rules. Go away." Those, like, they just wouldn't let me play. And so I wanted to play so badly as a kid, and then I would read like the manuals cover to cover,
I did that too.
and the campaigns, but I never played. And then I was hanging out at like ReaderCon with Rajan Khanna and Matt London and Jordan Hamlessly, Jordan London now, and possibly somebody else. And they were like, "Oh, we play a game. Do you want to play?" Oh, Trevor Quattry, and then who's the editor of Analog. And so I was like, "Yeah, hell yeah, I'll play." But they were playing Pathfinder, so we played Pathfinder, and they were like hand holding me through the thing, and it was like so stupid. It was like, just a basic dungeon crawl, but I was so excited. On my way home, I was taking the train home. I like mapped out this whole campaign on like this little notepad I had. And I had this campaign, in the back of my head for probably over a decade.
Mhm.
And I started mapping it out a few years ago, and like, years later, I joined a Roll20 group and been playing for a while. And then I ran like a one shot maybe 3-4 years ago in this world. And then I was like, you know what? I think it's time. I think I'm ready. I think I've earned my chops or whatever, earned my sword. And so, yeah, it started running in Roll20. We just finished week 2 yesterday, and
Nice.
yeah, it's fun. It's my own, homebrew thing. It's going to be fairly short. I think maybe like 5 sessions, 8 sessions, but I'm having fun with it. It's really cool, and it's challenging because I'm forced to tell stories on the fly because like they're like, I'll give you an example. Like there's a gate, like an ancient arch that they want to go through, and they're like, "Well, should we go through the arch?" And I'm just like in my head, I'm like, it's just an arch, it's just a fucking arch. But like they spent like 40 minutes deciding if they want to go through it or climb the wall around it, and it was just like, yeah. Anyway, so you have to like really think on the fly, and it forces me into an interesting creative place because, like, if you're writing a short story or a novel, it's like, I'll think about it, or you have time. There's no like, no one's pointing a gun at your head, but like when you're in a game like that, it's It's much more intense. I liked it though. I had a good time.
Nice.
I think everybody who's ever run has had that experience.
Yeah.
I think it is one of the best ways to socialize that I know of. I play in 3 or 4 different campaigns, and it's always enjoyable.
Matt, you mentioned that when you're writing something like a short story, there's no, gun to your head to hurry up and, make up the story. But, what's the relationship between DMing and being a writer, but similarities and differences,
Yeah. I mean, I've only, like I said, this is maybe my 3rd time ever doing it, like literal like sessions.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if I have enough depth to, experience to really compare them. But yeah, I mean, mainly just having to come up with stuff on the fly, and they'll ask questions or do things that you don't expect them to do, and it's like, oh, how do I fit this into the narrative? And sometimes it's really cool. You're like, oh, I didn't think they were going to do this or ask this or go there, but if I add this, I can add color and flavor to it. So it's like when you're writing a story or something, and you want to give like, you want to set a scene, for example, you're going to, you describe a few things going on in the scene, and you're just adding like little bits of color, little bits of flavor in the scene. And it's the same thing. And it just adds like it adds a depth. It adds like to the reader's imagination or the player's imagination a little bit more, and makes the world a little more real. So like that part to me was super fun.
Like, Kat, I feel like you have something to say about this too, so I'm just going to ask you.
No, I totally agree. I think, I don't know, there's a huge upsurge in storytelling games, and I love playing storytelling games with writers, because you do have to tell stories on the fly, and you have to collaborate, and it's incredibly enjoyable.
It's awesome. So I kind of want to go back to the AI thing just briefly, and then we got to start wrapping up, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I know a while back we had talked about AI. Gosh, I don't know, probably a couple of years ago now. But you were pretty distressed about AI at that point. Do you still feel pretty distressed about AI, or do you feel like it's kind of proven itself to be, I don't know, useful or not useful, or what are your feelings around that?
Angry. Mainly, like, I work in IT, so it's like every ad I get, it's very targeted to be here, AI, put AI in your soup. I don't want AI in my fucking soup. I hate how it's being shoved down everyone's throat. I hate now that anytime I see a wall of text, my first instinct is to ask, is this AI?
Yeah.
And I hate that. And I hate that, like, there's this new thing called vibe coding where people use AI to write, they call it vibe coding. And it's like, you're not coding. Like you're writing a prompt, and the thing spits out something that resembles code, and it might do what you want it to do, but only just that. And any other way you do it, it's going to break. And from every other, everything I've read about it, that it generates code that's pretty bad, and it takes more time to fix the bugs in the code than it would if you just wrote it directly. And the other issue that I foresee is that, you have a generation of people that are relying on AI to do basic coding, and then you need, let's say, a middle or senior level person to review it. Well, how do you get the middle and senior level people? How do you get them to that skill level if they're not actually training on actual code? Because the vibe coders are not going to learn the ropes through trial and error, because the AI is doing it. So how are they going to know there's a bug in it? So then I foresee when those generations leave the workforce, whether they retire or forced out, whatnot, you're going to have like a knowledge gap, and I think it's going to be really bad.
Yeah.
And that's just in IT. Like in fiction, obviously we know that there's a lot of people, submitting stories as their own that's written by AI. And I know an editor who works for a major magazine that you've heard of, and they tell me that they run submissions through an AI detector. And this detector, according to them, is extremely accurate because what they did was they put stories that they received prior to ChatGPT, like from 5-10 years ago. The detector says 0 AI. Then they put modern or recently received stories through the detector. And the thing that they're getting a lot of is not that the whole thing is AI, but sections of it are. So people are using it to like rewrite sentences, rewrite paragraphs, or just like to fill in a gap. So it's not the whole thing. And this is the issue that I have with it, is because like if you're passing off, and I've said this pretty, vociferously online, is like if you're passing off something as your own that you didn't actually write, that's plagiarism. Like there's no other name for it. Everyone's like, well, it's play. You're lying. You're lying. You're not the author of the work. I don't care that you put in a fabulous prompt into the machine, or you're choosing which paragraph to insert into your story. You didn't write it. That's plagiarism. Because if I took a paragraph out of one of your novels, one of your stories, and put it in mine, that's plagiarism. I mean, it's so blatant and obvious to me. And then not to mention like the energy use, right? The water use, like I was reading today, I follow a blogger called Ed Zitron, and he's a strong believer that the AI is a bubble and it's going to collapse, and that the LL.
I've read stuff by him before.
Yeah, he writes these really long posts that take me like all day to read, but they're great. And there's also a lot of studies that show that LLMs are actually really limited in terms of their ability. Like they're not reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
They can give the illusion of reason, but they're actually not. They're really good at guessing. And they're so good at guessing that sometimes they fool you into thinking that they're actually getting the right answer. So I think that the AI is echo to our Narcissus. Like it's basically echoing back to us, and we're falling in love with it. And like you see how this can lead to like psychosis, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are just falling into AI psychosis. I can go on, but it's very frightening to me, and I think that's why I really have been trying to focus on a kind of at least self-authenticity, and it's something that I really like to see in other creative arts.
Yeah, I can tell you, it's being shoved down my throat too. And I'm a instructional designer. And for everyone who doesn't know what that is, which is pretty much everyone, I design curriculum, usually corporate, but I've also done post-secondary stuff. And man, they are just shoving it down our throats. They just want us to do everything on it. And my argument is always, there's nothing I don't already do better than it. Why bother with it? It's just a waste of time for me.
Yeah.
And if I don't know how to do something well enough that it's a temptation, then I don't know if it's wrong.
Right.
So like, what's the point?
Like if someone rolled out an AI and it's like, here's this AI is going to do your taxes. And we trained it on, our own data set of fake, tax returns, and, you pay us $200 and it'll do your taxes for you and maximize your deductions. I might be like, okay,
Right?
but it's like, instead they're just like, we're going to go after the creative arts. We're going to, screw over visual artists. We're going to screw over, novelists and copywriters and, just like, we're going to steal from you. Why? Because all that stuff's free on the internet and they can train on it.
Uh-huh.
One of the companies I work for is IEEE, and like they have like their big flagship site standards, which is like international electronic standards.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just bombarded with bots that are like just training AIs because it's chock full of so much information. It's like they're slurping it from everywhere they can, just training. And what are they giving back? They're not giving it back. They're just taking that and then they're going to sell it back to you.
Let's wrap it up. This might not be the best question after talking about AI, but what is giving you hope right now?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think what's giving me hope is, seeing the pockets of people that are just refusing to despair. So I think that, we saw that in Minnesota, and, we're seeing that all around the country, I think, and around the world. And one of the themes of the Rainseekers is resilience in the face of difficulty, and not resilience, because I think that word could sometimes be misunderstood, but just believing a better future is possible, but not just believing in it, but just working towards it and hoping that if you do that enough, a little bit at a time, eventually you will reach a better place. And that place that you reach, maybe it won't be utopia, but it'll be better than where you are now. And I think if you do that incrementally, and you do that, if we do that collectively, like as a species, we could be in a really amazing place. So it gives me hope to see all these little pockets of people just saying, no to the cruelty, no to the horrible things that are happening. Like, we want a better world. We want a better place for us and for our children and our children's children. And like that, to me, that gives me hope.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. If this helps too, my family has a game. When we see AI art, we see how many mistakes we can find in it.
Yeah.
My kids are really good at it. They'll be like, oh yeah, look at this here, stuff that I don't pick up. And they're really good at identifying what's AI and what's not.
There's a Reddit called Is This AI? And that's exactly that. Someone posts a picture and then everyone tries to find the flaws.
Yeah. All right. So what do you have coming out next?
So in the next few days, I believe, I have a short story coming out in Lightspeed called S.B. Droger Dreams of War. And it is kind of my anti-Doge story. So I was so angry when Doge first started laying off all those workers and cutting all those programs, and it just infuriated me. So I was like, I'm going to really hurt a Doge employee. Essentially I trap a Doge employee in hell. So it's called S.B. Droger Dreams of War. It's in Lightspeed. And I have a couple other short stories that are coming out, but nothing has been signed yet. So I can't really mention them. And then other than that, I'm just hard at work on the follow-up to the Rainseekers.
Where do you want people to find you online?
You could visit me if you go to my website, matthewkressel.net. It has links to all my stuff. So like, I have a lot of hats, so to speak. So it's all centralized there. So if you want to subscribe to some of my newsletters or see my list of novels and publications, it's all there. It's got links to all my socials and whatnot. Or you could just Google @Matt Kressel and one of my socials will pop up there.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I've appreciated talking to you again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alan and Kat. It's always a pleasure to be on, and I miss you guys. So hopefully we can see each other soon in person.
Well, that was, I thought, a really terrific interview. Matt always has lots of interesting and thoughtful things to say.
Yeah, always. I love talking to Matt. I've been trying to think this entire time how many times I've interviewed him. I believe it's about 5 at this point, maybe 6.
You're going to have to be like Saturday Night Live and start giving people jackets when they hit 5 or 6.
You're not kidding.
Yeah.
I think the first time I ever interviewed him was on the old podcast. I think the second time I interviewed him was on the old podcast too.
Okay. So you got a couple more to go on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you reading now?
I just finished a book I really liked called The Lost Spectacular by Zoe Duhame, which is coming out, I'm afraid, in September. So people have a little ways yet to wait on it. But it was really terrific if you like kind of libraries and chasing through pages and all of that. And then I am 2/3 of the way through Matt Dinniman's Operation Bounce House.
Oh, how is that? I've been thinking about getting that.
I like it. I don't like it as much as I love the Carl books. I mean, I really love the Carl books. They're just unadulteratedly funny. And this is cute and the characters are engaging, but it is not, it doesn't have Princess Donut. So how can it be any good?
You're the first person to recommend those books to me. I have now had people who don't even read science fiction and fantasy recommend them to me.
Yes. See, you heard it from me
You
first.
did? I did.
I'm ahead of the curve, baby.
You really are. You are. I mean, I would expect no less from you, Kat, honestly.
There we go. There we go. But what are you reading?
Okay, so I still have to finish Spacetrucker Jess by Matt, but I'm really close to the end. I've got like 50 pages left.
Okay.
Which, I've loved it. It's been so fun. Such a fun book. Like
Yeah.
that character is just
It is a fun book.
quite a
Yeah.
hilarious character. And let's see, I'm also finishing the final Expanse novel, Leviathan Falls.
Oh, yeah.
I've been taking that one slow, but
Yeah. Worth slow.
yep. I'm just about there.
Huh? That's awesome.
I've read this series over such an expanse such an expanse of my life, that it's weird to have it finally closing out,
Yeah. Someday we'll get to do that with the George R.R. Martin series, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe, you think? I don't know. I don't know.
Who knows?
It's gonna be up there with Patrick Rothfuss too, right?
Oh, God. Oh, God. Yeah. Yeah.
After that, I have a book planned called Wings of Tibet by Kat Rambo.
Ooh!
Hmm.
Ooh, I hear that's the final of a series. Speaking of finishing series.
Right? Well,
Yeah.
I alluded to this before, but I have a list of series that I'm reading right now
Mhm.
so that I don't forget about any of them.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, I really got to wrap some of these up. This is getting kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that.
So I've been waiting for the Wings of Tibet for quite some time because that author took forever writing the final book. So
They did, but they did finish it.
oh gosh. But yeah, that's what I'm reading right now, and tons of comic books.
Awesome.
So I guess that's it for us this time around, huh?
All right. It's been delightful.
It has been. We are bringing you hope one episode at a time. If This Goes On, Don't Panic is edited and produced by moi, Alan Bailey. Our theme music is by Father Flamethrower. Additional music is by Christopher Snydrowski and outro music by Sable Aradia. Intro by Dave Robinson. Special thanks to our guest, Matthew Kressel. Thanks for supporting us, and we'll see you again soon.